life. Why would I want to gamble and spend thousands of pounds on marketing or advertising when I think actually you can do a lot of it for free? So that's kind of my stand on things. The only time I did actually pay for something was a wedding fair once. I do some weddings with my photography, as long as it's sort of different in a unique angle, because I don't like the standard, you know, where they line everyone up and they do all the snaps and they spend hours just getting family members in. But when I went to a wedding fair anyway, and luckily I bargained them down and down on the price, so I still actually did a little bit of bartering and got my table, got my place there for quite cheap. But weirdly enough, I did not get a job from that wedding fair, and it may have worked for some people, but it didn't really work for me. So here's how I would go about marketing and advertising myself. I think there's lots you can do. For example, you can always go to your local paper or a national paper and you can pay for an advert. But why pay for an advert when you can actually have a free article? And like some of the articles I've got here today in this book, which you're welcome to look at the end, some of these are 4, 5 pages long. How much would that cost if you were actually paying for, if it was an actual advert? And I think people take to articles better as well, because whereas an advert, you are selling yourself and it's kind of in everyone's face. With an article, you are still selling yourself, but it's kind of hidden and it's in the subconscious. People are taking that in. And so they'll read about you and then they'll get in touch. And it's almost as if it's on their terms that way, because you're not just saying, buy my product. So I think that articles are a really good thing. If you've got something unique, and I'm sure that you have with your companies and with what you're doing, freelance, because I think you're all freelance. Am I right in saying you're mainly freelance sort of in the film industry, working on films, that kind of thing, yeah? So you're all doing something different. So just find a different slant, go to the papers and say, look, this is what I'm doing, would you like to write about me? And you'll be amazed, because a lot of them will. And you start off with a local press, and then that moves on to the national press, because the national press will suddenly read a local paper, and then somebody will write about you in the national press, and then the radio will get in touch with you. And then, suddenly you find that the TV, Calendar News, or Look North are phoning you up and saying, can we get you on the show? Another thing to think about as well with branding, I always think, is little simple things like, what's your company name? So, for example, instead of Sarah, insert surname here, I call myself Sarahphotogirl. And straight away, nearly every single person who ever interviews me, it's the obvious one, what's your surname? Sorry, I'm not telling you. And it keeps there's a bit of intrigue about it. But also, on top of that, with my name particularly, it's obvious what I do, and it sticks in people's, memories. They're not going to go away and say, oh, I met this girl, Sarahphotogirl, and what does she, I can't remember what she does, but, So it's little things like that, just to pick your name carefully, because that will really help, you to stick in people's minds. Right. Another way to also get marketing for free is showing your work in public places. I know it's a bit different for film. Obviously, my work is static imagery, so local cafes, which could go on to national, cafes or pubs, whatever, just to get your pictures out of, in your case, to get your films out everywhere, just wherever you can. People will show them, people will be glad to show them, and I think that's always a good free way of advertising. Once again, if you were paying for that wall space, think how much it would cost. It's invaluable. Okay, self-marketing as well, because these days it's kind of, websites, obviously. I don't know if you've all got websites already. How many have already got websites for the companies? Quite a few. I don't know, did you pay a lot of money for the websites? No. I was going to say, there's ways, personally, my experiences, I've had a few websites over the years, or I've improved my own website, and I think that if you're creative, like we all are in this room, then you probably know what you want from your website, and you can probably work with a student who's very talented, who's an up-and-coming designer, web designer, things like that. There's a lot of things you can get for free if you think about it and you look around.
So this is the Raindance Twitter account. As you see, we've got a fairly hefty number of followers. We've got 11,500 nearly. And we started this just over a year ago, and we didn't take any courses. I never went to university. I went to art school. I've got no training in any of this stuff. I come from a farm. My parents were Amish farmers outside Toronto. I've got no business being here, but here I am. How we managed to get this number of Twitter followers through trial and error. We do about 10 tweets a day, and there's specific times during the day when we tweet. Between 10 and 12 in the morning, between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, and between 8 and 10 at night. Now, a lot of our followers live in the States, so we actually also have a New York-based and Toronto-based Twitter account, 5 hours behind, and sometimes we cross-post, but we try to keep those accounts separate. Now, of the 10 tweets a day we do, 3, we try to retweet, RT, someone else who's interesting. It could be someone that's hugely popular right now in the indie world, like Ted Hope in New York, or it could be one of you guys with 6 followers just saying something interesting. Of the next 7 or 8 tweets a day, we will try to take 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them, and point people back to our website by pointing to one of the articles on our website. And I'm blessed over the years of having many, many, many talented interns and people who work at Raindance who've contributed a great number of articles that are hosted on our website. And the idea is you take Twitter to bounce them back to your website to say something interesting, to find something interesting. Maybe some of you have been looking at our website. Just a quick note on the articles, and in fact tweets, what Sarah was saying. Twitter is a headline microblogging site. It's a bit like when you leave here tonight, you'll walk down to the station and you'll pause in front of the newsagent, won't you? You look at all the newspapers, and will you not scan the headlines? You know, and then there's one that intrigues you. You'll step a little closer, and if it really intrigues you, you'll pull it out and give some money to the newsagent. And that's sort of the same philosophy as Twitter. The actual headlines are very important because what makes a clickable or watchable headline is something that attracts people's attention, and it usually has to involve something that's engaging and positive to the viewer. Now, I found out this the hard way by employing an intern for which we were not paying. Bright young thing, shows up on Monday morning late last year, and I gave her a whole bunch of stuff to do, which I thought it would take her till Wednesday night. And blow me down, an hour later, she'd finished everything. She said, "What do you want me to do next?" And I gave her another bunch of stuff to do, and again she was finished in an hour, and I'm going, geez, I'm spending all my time delegating to this amazing intern who happens to be from up north here in the UK. And then the third time she asked me, around about lunchtime, I was so frustrated. She sits right next to me, and I was at that moment going through my trash folder, I do from time to time, to see if there's anything got stuck in there. And I noticed I was pausing on an article in which the headline was, 10 ways to make her come every day, a sex spam. So I thought to myself, why have I paused on this headline? And realized it's very emotive, 10 ways to every day. So I clicked on it and opened it, and there was a very well-structured sex spam article with 10 key points. So I cut and pasted into Word. I exchanged the word cock for filmmaker. That's all I did, and I sent it to her, and I said, could you rewrite this? And she rewrote it as 10 things a filmmaker needs every day, bits of equipment and so on, one of the top pages on our website for over a year. And then we look at headlines by these cheap, junky, you know, crappy. I've got a whole folder full of interesting things that we do. 5 myths of self-promotion came, that article I wrote came as an idea from 5 myths of, you know, the VAT increase or some stupid business thing. Just to quickly demo this, I just did a tweet when Sarah started talking. That's what I was doing, Sarah. I wasn't being rude. I did a tweet from the front here. Get a free copy script of King's speech, and then my email address, and now I've put a couple other hashtags. Now this is about 12 characters left, I believe, which means if someone retweets it, there's still room for it, and if their handle, their name is long, then you'll lose a hashtag, but at the moment, there's lots of other groups picking this up. So if any of you want a free copy, I've got the PDF of King's speech on my laptop, which isn't synced to this, but what I would do now, what I'll do on the train back home tonight or tomorrow, is I'll email back everyone who asked me for a copy of this PDF, the King's speech, and you'll get that, but when you get the email from me, I'll be saying, hey, here's King's speech, enjoy. I need to ask you a favor. Could you like your Facebook group? Could you retweet to your friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? But now I have your email address. Ha ha. Let me show you what happens next. This is the back end of the program that we use to to email out all our newsletters and things. And this program, there's many. The one I've been using this for ages, I know it. I like it because it's got very good metrics. And I have a whole bunch of lists in here. And there's 47,000 names on here. And here's all the lists. So there will be people who went to the Short Film Corner in Cannes. There'll be, next week, there'll be the people I met in Berlin, blah, blah, blah. And we have offices in Hungary, Germany, France, Belgium, Canada, and America at the moment, about 7 or 8 offices, and I'm losing track. There's a new one every day, it seems. So then I'll add a list to, you know, people who ask for King's Speech from Leeds, and then I can send you an email.
And one thing that I think is super important, as well as all of this sort of social media, which can really top up, you know, your own networking opportunities, is face-to-face contact with people and being present and being seen and having good stuff to talk about and being active. So that's what he had done. So he'd already got someone to see the film that he'd made before. They saw a lot of potential in him. And then, so when the script arrived on their desk, they already knew his name, they already knew a little bit about him, they knew what he could do with a low budget, because, as you all know, 10 grand isn't very much to make a feature film. And so, yeah, so he already kind of had as much positive stuff as you could get, really, because obviously this whole kind of discussion about sending your CV into the ether, that, you know, it really is difficult. I'm not a particularly experienced producer, but I get people writing to me every day that want to be runners, want to be work experienced people, but if I haven't met them or I don't know much about them, then it's very difficult to tell from a piece of paper what they could do for you. So he'd already managed to do that, which was great. So then, the brilliant thing that we managed to do is get Artificial Eye to guarantee a theatrical release for the film. So this is another thing, is the kind of the negotiations that you have to go through to try and get that little edge. Certain things that don't seem that important at the time then suddenly are extremely important later on down the line. So because they own the Curzon Cinemas in London, they are in a position to be able to guarantee something like that. So we managed to get them to do that, which was fantastic. And then you kind of have to keep using your leverage. So we then basically, because we had this brand of Artificial Eye, which is synonymous with the best art house cinema from across the world, we had a great script, but we also had this incredible brand, which we milked as much as we possibly could. Sometimes it was a bit tricky because people think that you're doing quite a big production if you have a really good brand like that attached to it. We also had some money from the BBC involved as well, which again was great in some ways and difficult in others because they thought it was a huge BBC production. But yeah, so basically, we kept levering this Artificial Eye brand, which then allowed us to approach actors that were much, much bigger than the actors that you'd possibly get in a micro-budget film like the one that we had. And that meant that we could get, we got Joanne Froggatt, who was in Downton Abbey recently, but she's quite she's not a famous actress, she's not an A-lister, but she is a really sort of a face of television, really. She's quite recognisable. I'm going to show a clip in a minute, you'll see her. And so we managed to, yeah, basically kind of convince her that it would be a great step up for her career to go from kind of television to film. And we used Artificial Eye's brand, really, to get her. So I'm going to show you a clip. It's quite long. And then, I mean, when you're watching it, maybe have a little think about what you would use to market it in a way, because there's so many elements in this, because it is an issue-based drama, that you can kind of pull out and use to market the film to various different niche audiences.